Hi, I'm Maggie, and this is Fred. Thank you for stopping by Crafts the Charm today. I'm so glad you are here. And today we're going to be knitting a wasp nest hat, and we're going to be knitting that with at least two different colors. Fred is modeling the prototype hat that I made when I was figuring out the pattern. So to knit this hat, you're going to need two colors of yarn, a background color and an accent color. You can use more than one accent color if you want to. I'm using two sets of circular needles. One is 4.5 millimeters, and that's for the ribbing, and the other is 5.5 millimeters, and that's for the majority of the hat where I'm doing the wasp nest pattern. You're also going to want a cabling needle, and you're going to want a yarn needle at the very end, and you might want some stitch markers. You'll also want some scissors. Now, my hat that I made is a little bit small. It's for my head, and I'm a small person. It's about 22 inches around, and I used 42 grams of the background color, which came out to approximately 91 yards, and I used 28 grams of my accent color, which came out to approximately 61 yards. I began by casting on 128 stitches, and I used a long tail cast on. With this size needle and this yarn, I can cast on approximately 2 stitches per inch, but I figure that out in advance before I figure out how long I want my tail to be because I am paranoid about not having enough yarn in a long tail cast on. However many stitches you cast on, it needs to be a multiple of 8. Now I'm going to knit this in the magic loop style. So once your stitches are cast on, you're going to split them evenly across the 2 needles. When you hold your needles, hold the needle that has the yarn still attached to the top and your other needle to the bottom. And then you are going to slide the top needle out of your stitches and you are going to use that to knit. So to knit our ribbing, we're going to do a knit 2, purl 2 pattern. Now I started by knitting 2 and then purling 2, and then I just continued around in that pattern. But once I started doing the wasp nest pattern, I wasn't happy with the way the ribbing and the wasp nest related. They just didn't line up nicely. So I knit a very small example here just to show you that I would recommend that you do that ribbing a little differently from how I did it. Again, I started knit 2 and then purl 2 and then continued. But with this small example, I purled 1, then knit 2, purled 2, and just continued. You end up with the same pattern. It's just that we're starting slightly offset. And you can see how that lines up much better with the wasp nest pattern. I believe you could also knit 1 to start and then purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, and go on that way. And it would line up in a slightly different way. But both of those ways, I believe, would look better than what I did, which was starting off knitting 2 and then purling 2. So I did 9 rows of the ribbing on the 4.5 millimeter needles, and then I'm going to do one final row of the ribbing, but I'm going to do that on the larger needles. So I want to move on to the larger needles with the ribbing and not start both moving on to the needles and the wasp nest pattern at the same time because I felt like that would be too much. So I'm simply going to use a 5.5 millimeter needle when I start knitting instead of using the top needle. So again, just follow the pattern, get all of the stitches off of the first needle. After you've knit all of the stitches off the first needle, then you're just going to pull the other needle all the way through the stitches until the needle you were just knitting from is now in the new set of stitches and continue. You're then going to split the stitches in the middle across your new set of needles so that you can continue with magic loop. Now we have our ribbing knit, we have our stitches distributed across the larger needles, and we're going to start with the wasp nest pattern. Now this is going to be cable 2 to the back, cable 2 to the front, just repeated all the way around for the first round. But what we're going to do is we're going to introduce our accent color now, and I'm using this really pretty denim tweed, which is from the Dollar Tree. So we begin with taking the first 2 stitches off of the bottom needle and putting them onto the cable needle and holding them to the back of the work while we knit the next 2 stitches onto our knitting needle. We're going to knit these in the background color, the white. Once we've done that, we're going to knit the 2 stitches off of the cabling needle onto our back needle, and we're going to knit these in the accent color. So make a loop with your accent color so that you have a tail that you can weave in later, and loop that over the needle and knit those 2 stitches off of the cabling needle onto your needle. Every time you knit off the cabling needle, you're going to put 2 more stitches onto the cabling needle. And you're always going to alternate. So these 2 were held to the back. So we're going to slip 2 stitches off of our needle and put them on the cabling needle. And this time we're going to hold them to the front of the work. Now, from now on, we're always going to knit 4 of one color together. So we just knit 2 of the accent color, the blue. So we're going to knit 2 more stitches off of the knitting needle in the blue. So knit the next 2 stitches in blue. And now we're going to knit off the cabling needle. Here's another rule. Anytime the cabling needle is held to the front, we're knitting in the background color, the white. Anytime the cabling needle is held to the back, we're knitting in the accent color, the blue. So knit those 2 stitches off of the cabling needle in the white, the background color. And then remember, anytime we just knit off the cabling needle, we're going to take the next 2 stitches and put them on the cabling needle. We just held to the front of the work, so now we're going to hold to the back of the work. But you can also tell that we're going to do that because we just put 2 white stitches, 2 background color stitches on our needle, so the next 2 have to be white or background color, which means the next time we knit off the cabling needle, it's going to be blue. So now that you've got those 2 stitches to the back, knit 2 more off of the needle in the white, the background color. Now knit off the cabling needle in the blue. Now put 2 more stitches on the cabling needle, hold it to the front of the work, knit the next 2 stitches in blue. Now knit the 2 stitches off the cabling needle in the background color, the white. Take 2 more stitches and put them on the cabling needle and hold them to the back of the work, and knit the next 2 stitches in white. And you're going to continue this pattern all the way to the end. Once you reach the end of the first needle, you're just going to continue with the pattern. So just do the usual pulling the needles through so that the needle formerly in front is now the needle in the back, and continue with the pattern exactly the same. So if we just knit 2 white, we're going to take 2 stitches off of the needle, hold them to the back of the work, knit 2 more white, and then we knit the blue. If you keep those rules in mind, it really helps you not to get stuck forgetting what stitch you're on while you're knitting. So once you've got all of your cabling round complete, you're going to knit 3 rounds that are just the knit stitch. And this is really easy. You're always going to just knit the color of the stitch that's already on the needle. So knit the background color, the white stitch is white, knit the accent color, the blue stitch is blue. Do that 3 times around. While I'm knitting around with that, I wanted to show you the inspiration for this hat. So I got this ad from 10,000 Villages for this hat, Nabina Waffle Weave Palm Beanie. And I absolutely loved the pattern, and I wanted to see if I could figure out how to do it. And I think I mostly have, except for when I got the ribbing mixed up at the bottom. but I'm hoping you'll consider shopping at 10,000 Villages. Their mission is to develop partnerships with artisans in under-resourced communities to help them earn income by bringing their handcrafted products and powerful stories to global markets. And they do have really beautiful stuff. So even though my channel is very small, my most popular knitting video over 3 years has earned $16.24. I am going to donate any proceeds from this video to 10,000 Villages. So there is a way that you can simply donate to the organization without purchasing anything. And I think whatever I earn from this video, that will make it stretch the furthest. So when you watch this video, know that any money that the video makes is going to a good cause. So this is what the hat looks like after we've knit our 3 rows around, which are just straight knitting. And you can see the background color is forming almost like little picture frames or windows around that accent color. What we're going to do now is another cabling row, which is going to crisscross the background and the accent colors over each other, which will give the effect of closing up the top of those picture frames or windows and opening up new ones, which are sort of offset from the original, so like a checkerboard pattern. Now, we're going to alternate cabling first to the back, which we did in the original cable row, and cabling first to the front. But if you forget, you can remember that we always cable the accent color to the back and the background color to the front. So when you look at your first 2 stitches, if they're white, or your background color, whatever your background color is, we're going to cable them to the front. And if they're blue, or whatever your accent color is, you're going to cable them to the back. So again, if you just keep all of those rules in mind, there's no way you can mess this pattern up. Okay, so you can see that our first 2 stitches are white, the background color, so we're going to cable them to the front, which is exactly right. We cabled to the back the last time we cabled. So take them off the needle, put them on the cabling needle, bring them to the front of the work. And now we're going to knit our next 2 stitches in blue, off of the regular needle onto the other needle in blue. Now we're going to knit off the cabling needle. So it's that first stitch and the last stitch on the other needle are the only time that we only have 2 of one color. So we're now going to knit the white off of the cabling needle, and now we've got a free cabling needle, so we're going to take the next 2 stitches off of the needle, which are blue, and hold them to the back of the work and knit the next 2 stitches off the needle in white. Now we knit off the cabling needle in blue, take the next 2 stitches, put them to the front of the work, and knit the next 2 stitches in blue. And then we're just going to continue all the way around. And as we do that, if we're doing it right, we should see that those little windows are closing up over our accent color, and we're opening up new sections of accent color that are offset. And so once we've done that all the way around, you're going to knit 3 more rows where you match the color that's on the needle to the color that you knit. And once you knit 3 more rows, it's time to cable again. And this time the first 2 stitches on the needle are blue. So we're going to cable those to the back, knit 2 in white, then knit the 2 off the cabling needle in blue. Now we have a free cabling needle, so we're going to take the next 2 stitches off the needle onto the cabling needle, hold them to the front of the work because they're white, and knit the next 2 stitches in blue. And we're going to continue around. And then you're just going to keep repeating that. Do another 3 rounds that are just knit stitch matching your colors, and then cable again. And we started with cabling to the back, then we cabled to the front. We've just cabled to the back, so the next time we're going to cable to the front. Now make your hat the size that you want. I'm going to do 6 complete sets of the cabling, 3 rounds, and cabling. And then I'm going to begin decreasing. So here you can see I have the hat, and it's got 6 complete rounds, 6 little windows of accent color, and it's time to decrease. So here's how I decided to decrease this hat. We're going to do 1 full set where we decrease the accent color. So one full set of the 3 rounds of knitting. And we're going to decrease on the first round, and we're going to decrease on the third round. So what I did to decrease was, the first time on the first knit round, which is where I am right now, I knit the first accent color stitch. There are 4. So I knit the first one, and then I slipped the next 2 onto my needle purlwise, and then slid the needle underneath them and knit them together. So if you can't get the needle under, and there were a few times where I had difficulty getting the needle under, I just used another knitting needle. Sometimes I used the cabling needle, sometimes I used another knitting needle that I had handy. So just do that all the way around. Every time you come to a set of the accent color stitches, knit the first one, and then purlwise, slip, slip, and then knit the next 2 together, then knit the 4th one. So you will end up with 4 background color and then 3 accent color, 4 background color, 3 accent color. Once you've done that, knit the next round normally. Those stitches that you knit together will be a little tight. This will help loosen it up for the next round of slip, slip, knit. Now on the 3rd round, what we're going to do is again knit the background color or white stitches normally. But when we get to our 3 accent color, slip, slip, purlwise, knit the first 2 together, and then knit the next one. And do that all the way around. Now we have 4 background color to 2 accent color. So this will allow us to be very symmetrical when we do our next round of cabling. So once you've finished that, it is time to cable. And now you've got 4 of the background color and 2 of the accent color. We start with the background color, 2 of the background colors. So slip those onto a cabling needle and hold them to the front of the work. And then instead of knitting 2 of the accent color, knit only 1. Now you're going to knit your 2 background color, your 2 white, off of the cabling needle. And take your remaining accent color, your blue, slip it onto the cabling needle and hold it to the back of the work. Knit the next 2 background color, the next 2 white. Now knit the 1 accent color, the 1 blue, off of the cabling needle. Take the next 2 white or background color off of your needle onto the cabling needle, hold them to the front of your work, and knit 1 of the accent color, 1 blue. Now knit the 2 off your cabling needle, slide 1 accent color onto the cabling needle to the back of your work, and knit 2 more background color. So it's basically the same, except you're acting on one of the accent color instead of two each time, but you're still acting on two of the background color each time. Once you've gone through with that cabling round, now we have two more rounds of just knitting. This time we're going to reduce the background color. So we're going to do exactly the same thing. Where we have 4 of the background color, we're going to knit the first one, then slip 2 purlwise and knit them together, and then knit the last one. Knit your 2 blue normally. So you'll go 1 round like that. So now you have 3 background color to 2 accent color. Then you'll do a normal round, and then you'll reduce those the same way we reduced before. You'll slip the first 2, knit them together, and then knit the second one. So after that 3rd round of knitting, where the first was decreases and the third was decreases, now you have 2 background to 2 accent. And now it's time to cable again. Now, because I wanted to continue decreasing and I didn't want it to look weird, what I did here was for every other accent, I knitted it with the background color. So I essentially erased every other accent color. So I'm still doing the same cabling, but I'm only doing the accent color for every other circle. And because we have more than 3 stitches between them, I'm just wrapping the yarn around the background color yarn every 3rd stitch so that I'm carrying it along with the background color as I go. Now I'm going to do the 3 rounds of knitting, and then that's going to be the end. So what I'm going to do here is for the first round, we have 2 of the accent color, and then we have 6 of the background color, because those middle 2 would have been the accent color. What I'm going to do is knit 2, then slip, slip, knit, slipping purlwise the middle 2, and then knit 2 for the first round. Knit the second round normally, again carrying that accent color yarn over, wrapping it over every 3 stitches to carry it along. And then for the final round, now we have 2 accent to 5 background. I did a slip, slip knit for the first 2 of the 5 background, knit the 3rd regularly, and then did a slip slip knit for the last 2 of the 5 backgrounds. So that got the backgrounds down to 3. Do that all the way around. And that's it for the knitting. With that done, I trimmed off both pieces of yarn, gave them a nice long tail, and threaded them onto my yarn needle. And then I took them off of the knitting needle, the one opposite where the yarn originated, onto the yarn needle, pulled the yarn through, and then I pulled that needle through the other yarn, same as I did when I switched needles, and threaded the rest of the loops onto my yarn needle and through the yarn, and then I pulled that tight and poked it down through the hole in the middle. On the inside, I just threaded it through the yarn a few times and then tied it off in a knot and left a little bit of a tail. Then I wove in my ends. If at any time while you're knitting this pattern you want to change the color of the accent yarn, you're going to do that on a cabling row. And when you do it, simply use a different color yarn instead of your original accent color, and that will give you a new color of accent for the next round of circles. Now, I started to do that with a sort of a rust-colored yarn, but I really didn't like the way it looked. So I just backed up and went back to my blue yarn. But you're going to start that yarn the same way you started your accent color originally. I then did my best to block the hat. I soaked it in warm water for about a half an hour and then gently squeezed it, put it in a towel, rolled it up, squeezed it, and then I tried to lie it flat and even out the knitting a little bit, particularly between the two needles. I do have trouble making my stitches the same tension, so you can definitely tell where the stitches are that were between the needles. So here's the finished hat. I hope you enjoyed this project and seeing this beautiful pattern, and again, I hope you will consider shopping at 10,000 Villages. Please drop a comment below and tell me what you think of this pattern, and as always, do let me know any mistakes that you see in my knitting technique or maybe in the way I put this pattern together. Thank you for spending time with me today. Take care.